I have to be honest, this is not an easy story for me to tell. My name is Hassan Ahmed. I have spent most of my life serving my community as an imam, guiding prayers, teaching the young, offering counsel. But nothing I had ever done, no lesson I had taught, prepared me for what I witnessed one Friday, the vision that would change my life forever. For a long time, I kept this to myself, not because I wanted to hide it, but because I didn't know how anyone would receive it. I didn't know if people would understand, or if they would question everything about me. You see, I wasn't just an ordinary man. I was an imam. For years, I had devoted my life completely to serving Allah. I studied, I taught, I led prayers, I guided people in their faith. My identity, my purpose, everything about me was rooted in Islam. People trusted me. They would come to me with their struggles, their doubts, their questions about life and faith, and I always had answers for them. Or at least I believed I did. I was confident in what I knew. I was certain in what I believed, especially on Fridays. Friday was not just another day. It was sacred. It was the day the mosque would fill with people from all walks of life, young and old, men who came with heavy hearts and others who came simply seeking peace. And I stood at the front of it all, every single week. That particular Friday started like any other. I woke up early, prepared myself, went over my message, and made my way to the mosque. There was nothing unusual about the day, nothing that suggested that my life was about to change forever. When I arrived, the mosque was already filling up. You could feel the atmosphere, quiet, focused, reverent. The soft murmurs of people greeting each other, then slowly fading as everyone settled down. It's a feeling I had experienced countless times. Familiar. Grounding. Certain. When it was time, I stepped forward to lead the prayer. I raised my hands and began. Everything felt exactly as it should. My voice was steady. My mind was clear. I was completely present in the moment, focused on the prayer, on my duty, on leading the people behind me. There was no distraction, no confusion, no hesitation, just peace. But then, something shifted. At first, it was so subtle that I almost ignored it, a feeling I couldn't quite explain. It wasn't fear. It wasn't even discomfort. It was different. I tried to stay focused, to continue as normal, but that feeling didn't go away. Instead, it grew stronger, pulling my attention in a way I had never experienced before during prayer. And that's when I realized this was not ordinary. I wasn't dreaming. I wasn't distracted. I was fully aware of where I was, what I was doing. And yet something beyond my understanding was beginning to unfold right in front of me. And I had no idea that what was about to happen next would completely change my life. I remember standing there in front of the congregation, feeling the weight of responsibility as always. Friday prayer had always been my anchor, my moment to connect not just with Allah, but with the people I led, the community I cared for. I had done this hundreds of times, perhaps thousands. I knew the rhythm, the words, the movements by heart. I felt confident, secure. I believed I understood exactly what I was doing. But that day, that Friday, something began to feel different. At first, it was subtle, almost imperceptible. A flicker of awareness in the corner of my mind, a whisper that something wasn't quite right. I tried to push it away. I told myself it was normal. Everyone has moments of distraction. I continued with the prayer, my voice steady, my words flowing as always. No one would have noticed. No one would have seen what I was feeling. But the feeling wouldn't leave me. It grew quietly, almost imperceptibly at first, then stronger, pressing at me from inside. It wasn't fear, exactly, and it wasn't panic. It was something heavier, more profound, something I had never experienced in all my years of leading prayers. It was like the air around me had changed. The mosque, the walls, the people, the sunlight filtering through the windows, it all felt the same, and yet it did. I tried to concentrate on the recitation, on the rhythm I knew so well, but the presence persisted. It wasn't behind me and it wasn't beside me. It was somewhere in front of me, closer than I could measure, but far enough that I couldn't make sense of it. My thoughts spun in circles. I told myself repeatedly, "This is impossible. You are imagining it. Focus." But deep down I knew it wasn't imagination. As I continued, I noticed small changes. The words I recited, familiar and practiced, began to feel weightier. Every syllable seemed to carry a weight I had never felt before. Every movement of my hands, every gesture in the prayer, felt amplified, charged with something beyond the ordinary. My entire being felt alive in a way that was exhilarating and terrifying at the same time. Then I saw it. At first, it was barely noticeable, a blur, a light, something moving in the corner of my vision. I blinked. I shook my head slightly, telling myself to focus. Maybe my eyes were tired. Maybe it was a trick of the light. But when I opened them again, it was still there. I froze. My voice faltered slightly. My hand shook. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure the people behind me must hear it, though they never did. It was there. Something, someone, something alive. And I knew, without doubt, that I was seeing something extraordinary. My mind raced. Am I seeing a vision? Is this real? How could this happen? Why me? I had studied faith for decades. I had preached, guided, prayed. I had devoted my life to understanding the divine, and yet I was utterly unprepared for this. And the presence grew clearer. The blur began to take shape. I could make out a figure, not fully, not yet, but enough that my breath caught in my throat. I could feel it watching me, aware of me, alive in a way that was beyond explanation. Every instinct in me, the part trained for focus, for calm, for leadership, told me to continue, to finish the prayer, to maintain composure. But another part, a deeper, more primal part, was screaming, "This is unlike anything you've ever known. This is something beyond human understanding." I stood there, frozen in that delicate balance between my duty and the unexplainable, and realized that whatever was in front of me, it was not going away. And that realization, it changed everything in that moment. I cannot describe the exact moment it happened, only that everything changed in an instant, and yet it unfolded slowly, painfully beautiful, as if time itself had been rewritten just for me. I was leading the prayer, my words measured, my gestures precise, my mind focused on my duty, on guiding those around me. But something inside me whispered, "No," shouted. That something was different, something was here, something was near, something I could not yet comprehend. I tried to brush it aside, told myself it was fatigue, that my imagination was playing tricks on me. I had led prayers countless times. I knew every movement, every word. I was confident in my faith, in my purpose, in the ritual itself. And yet, I felt a presence, subtle at first, like the brush of a wind I could not see, a vibration I could not touch, a pressure I could not measure, but real. I remember the first time I saw a hint of it. It was a shimmer, almost at the edge of my vision. A movement that was there but not there, like the outline of a flame dancing just beyond sight. My heart jumped and I wanted to blink it away, to convince myself it was nothing. But even as I blinked, rubbed my eyes, shook my head, the shimmer remained. My pulse quickened, not wildly but steadily, a drumbeat inside my chest that seemed to echo in my entire body. I could feel it in my stomach, my throat, my bones, my nerves, every cell alert, as if the universe itself had leaned closer to watch what would happen next. The air in the mosque changed. It wasn't louder, it wasn't darker or lighter, but somehow heavier, thicker, charged with something I could not name. I could still hear the recitation in my own voice, the quiet movements of the people behind me, the faint shuffling of feet and murmurs, yet it all felt distant, muted, like I was hearing it underwater. My vision narrowed, my awareness sharpened, and I felt myself drawn forward. Not physically, but spiritually, emotionally, mentally, as if some invisible thread connected me to that presence, pulling me unwillingly into its orbit. Then the figure began to form. Not suddenly, not like magic, but slowly, impossibly. A light first, soft and shimmering, yet warmer than the sun, softer than any flame I had ever felt. And then the shape, tall, radiant, human, yet transcending humanity in its grace and presence. I could feel it before I saw it fully, like a weight pressing gently on my chest, a warmth flooding my body, a stillness in my mind that was terrifying and comforting all at once. My voice faltered. My hands shook. My knees wobbled, though I was rooted to the floor, compelled to stay upright, compelled to see, compelled to witness. And then I saw the face. It is impossible to describe fully, yet impossible not to remember. Eyes like pools of light and understanding, deep enough to swallow all the fears, doubts, and questions I had ever held, yet kind enough to hold me tenderly, as if I were a child. Every line of the face, every expression, radiated love, authority, compassion, and a power I could feel vibrating through the air around me. I wanted to speak, to cry out, to fall to my knees, to ask questions, to confess, to beg for understanding, to do anything. But my voice was gone. My body was frozen. My mind spun in circles, trying to comprehend how this could exist, how this could be real. The robes, the light around him, the presence itself, it all shimmered and shifted in a way that was impossible to describe in words. Not like a reflection, not like a projection, but alive, breathing, aware, conscious. I could feel it watching me, knowing me, understanding every thought I had, every fear I carried, every doubt I had nurtured, every prayer I had ever uttered. I felt completely exposed and completely safe at the same time, a paradox that almost broke me. I knew who he was, but I denied it. No, this isn't real, I thought to myself. But after seeing the holes in both of his hands, my body began to feel numb. Then came the communication. Not words, not sound in the usual sense, but a flow of meaning, a feeling of understanding that poured directly into my being. But do not fear. You are seen. You are known. You are loved beyond understanding. I could feel it, not just hear it. I could feel it in my chest, in my soul, in the very marrow of my bones. Every doubt, every question, every weight I had carried was acknowledged, and yet I could not touch it, could not grasp it, could not explain it, only receive it. Tears ran down my face. I didn't care. I didn't move. I couldn't move. I could only stand trembling, absorbing everything, my entire being consumed by awe, by wonder, by a deep, aching recognition of something greater than anything I had known or imagined. Time dissolved. Seconds stretched into hours. Minutes collapsed into moments, and yet the figure remained, patient, waiting, understanding, loving. I realized then that this was not a lesson in fear, or in obedience, or in doctrine. It was a lesson in seeing, in understanding, in being present, in feeling, truly feeling, something beyond human comprehension, yet deeply personal, intimately connected to the core of who I am. My entire life of study, of teaching, of praying, it all fell away in that moment. Only presence remained, only recognition, only the encounter itself. When it finally began to fade, slowly, reluctantly, like a candle burning at the edges of vision, I was left changed, irrevocably, permanently. Oh. The world returned around me. The mosque, the people, the sunlight, the familiar smells of incense and stone. And yet I knew nothing would ever be the same again. I had seen, and I had been seen. I had encountered something real, something alive, something that defied words yet could never be forgotten. I lowered my gaze, my chest heaving. My mind reeled. I felt joy, fear, awe, terror, love, all at once. And I knew in that moment that my life had been forever altered. that I could never go back to the way I had been, that everything I thought I understood about faith, about presence, about the divine, had shifted in a single, impossible moment. As the figure slowly receded, I felt a quiet stillness settle over me, but it was not peace in the way I had known before. It was heavier, denser, like a silence so full it almost demanded something from me, something I could not yet name. My mind raced, trying to piece together what I had experienced, trying to hold on to the impossible reality before it slipped away entirely. I wanted to speak, to call out, to share, but my voice seemed locked inside me, trapped by awe, by fear, by the weight of everything I had just witnessed. And then the message became clear, not as words, not as language, but as a feeling, a knowing that spread through my entire being. It was a truth I could not argue with, could not resist, could not misunderstand. It spoke to the core of me deeper than any lecture, any text, any lesson I had ever taught. Love, understanding, compassion, forgiveness, unity. I realized in that instant that the vision had not appeared for me alone. It was a message for everyone, for those who were watching, for those who doubted, for those who had given up hope. And yet, it was personal. It was intimate. It was as though every choice I had ever made, every fear I had carried, every question I had asked in the silence of my own heart had been acknowledged and met with a profound acceptance. Tears streamed down my face. I could feel the weight of my own disbelief, the confusion, the fear of what this meant for my life, my faith, my identity. I had dedicated myself entirely to serving my community, to guiding them in understanding, to embodying the principles I had been taught. And now everything I had believed, even the boundaries I had drawn between what is sacred and what is unimaginable, had been transformed in a single moment. I felt a trembling inside me, not just in my body, but in the core of my being. Questions surged uncontrollably. Why me? Why now? How could this be real? What am I supposed to do with this? And yet, underneath the chaos of thought, beneath the tide of emotion, there was a quiet certainty. Something told me, you were meant to see this. You were meant to be changed. You were meant to carry this forward in whatever way you can. The vision had given me something more than a lesson or a miracle. It had given me perspective, a new lens through which to view the world, to view humanity, to view faith itself. It was not about doctrine, not about argument, not about proving anything to anyone. It was about seeing, truly seeing, beyond what the eyes could perceive, beyond what the mind could fully grasp. I felt the weight of responsibility settle on me like never before. How could I continue my work as an imam, knowing what I had seen, knowing what I had felt? How could I continue to lead prayers, to teach, to guide, without acknowledging the depth of what I now understood? And yet, I also felt a strange liberation. I had glimpsed a truth that transcended fear, that transcended judgment, that transcended the limitations I had always placed on myself. I walked out of that prayer that day feeling changed, not in some small way, not in a way that could be hidden or ignored, but completely. I felt my heart beating differently, my mind thinking differently, my faith itself reshaped by the experience. The world seemed sharper, more vivid, more real, and more fragile. Every human interaction, every moment of doubt, every fleeting thought of anger or judgment suddenly felt like it carried more weight, more significance, more opportunity for love. And yet, even with this understanding, I struggled. I wrestled with fear, fear of misunderstanding, fear of rejection, fear of what this revelation could mean for the people around me. I feared being seen as deluded or worse, as someone who had abandoned reason. And then I realized this was not something I could explain fully. It was something I had to experience, carry, live. The vision was not proof to give to the world. It was a challenge, a responsibility, a gift, and a calling, all wrapped into one. As I left the mosque that day, my steps were unsteady, my mind racing, my soul forever altered. I knew that nothing would ever feel ordinary again. I knew that every Friday, every prayer, every interaction, every teaching would carry the echo of what I had seen, of what I had felt, of what had been spoken to my heart without words. And I knew that, for the first time in my life, I had truly understood the meaning of seeing and being seen, of being called, and of being entrusted with something greater than myself. After that Friday, the vision did not leave me. Not in my dreams, not in the quiet moments of prayer, not in the empty spaces of my mind where I usually sought peace. It lingered, pressing on me from every angle, an invisible weight I could not shake, a presence I could not ignore. I tried to continue my duties as usual, teaching, guiding, leading prayers, offering counsel, but everything felt different, hollow, somehow, as if the rhythm of my life had been altered and nothing would ever fit the same way again. After that Friday, the vision did not leave me. Not in my dreams, not in the quiet moments of prayer, not in the empty spaces of my mind where I usually sought peace. It lingered, pressing on me from every angle, an invisible weight I could not shake, a presence I could not ignore. I tried to continue my duties as usual, teaching, guiding, leading prayers, offering counsel, but everything felt different, hollow, somehow, as if the rhythm of my life had been altered and nothing would ever fit the same way again. I found myself questioning everything I had once held certain, the doctrines I had learned, the principles I had taught, the boundaries I had drawn between faith and understanding, certainty and doubt, truth and perception. They all seemed fragile now, like thin paper in the wind. And the harder I tried to grasp them, the more they slipped through my fingers. Every night I wrestled with fear of being misunderstood, of being seen as deluded, of being rejected by my own community, my peers, even by the people who trusted me most. And yet, at the same time, I felt a strange exhilaration, a new awareness that I had been touched by something greater than myself, something I could not explain, something that defied the rules I had lived by. I tried talking to myself, reasoning with my mind. This was a vision, perhaps a dream, perhaps a trick of fatigue or imagination. I repeated it over and over, hoping the words would anchor me, restore the certainty I had lost. But deep inside, I knew it wasn't imagination. I knew it had been real. Real in a way that words could not fully capture. Real in a way that had changed the very core of who I was. I even thought about keeping it secret forever, burying it inside me, pretending nothing had happened. But that felt impossible. The vision demanded recognition. It demanded something of me, though I could not yet say what. The weight of it pressed on me, and I realized that ignoring it would be worse than any fear, worse than any doubt, worse than any rejection. And then there was the doubt of faith. I had spent decades studying, teaching, and practicing Islam. I had lived my life within the boundaries of what I believed to be divine law and guidance. And yet this experience, this vision, challenged everything I thought I knew. Was I imagining a message meant for me alone? Had I been chosen, or was I simply the victim of my own mind? Could I reconcile what I had seen with what I had been taught? Could I carry this truth without losing everything I had built, everything I had devoted myself to? Some nights I found myself weeping silently in the mosque, after everyone had gone, kneeling alone, whispering prayers I had never spoken before, questioning everything. I felt fear, humility, awe, and terror all at once. And yet, underneath it all, there was a strange peace. A knowledge that I had glimpsed something beyond the ordinary, something sacred, something real, something that demanded more from me than I had ever imagined. Every encounter, every conversation, every prayer became a test. Every word I spoke, every lesson I taught, I measured against what I had seen. And yet, I could not fully share it. How could I? How could I? How could I explain a vision of Jesus to my congregation without being dismissed, questioned, or rejected? How could I reconcile what I had experienced with the teachings I had devoted my life to? The inner conflict was relentless. Day and night, awake and asleep, I wrestled with the reality of what had happened and the life I was expected to lead. I felt torn between two worlds. The world I had known, with its structure, its rules, its certainties, and the world I had glimpsed, a world of presence, of truth, of love beyond explanation. And somewhere deep in my heart, I knew that I could not return to the person I had been before. Yet I feared the consequences of embracing it fully. Fear of judgment, fear of misunderstanding, fear of isolation. And still, the vision haunted me, calling me to see differently, to live differently, to speak differently, though I did not yet know how. I realized slowly that the conflict itself was part of the lesson, that sometimes understanding comes not in certainty, but in struggle. That faith can be stretched, challenged, reshaped, and that perhaps it is in the wrestling, in the fear, in the doubt that true insight is born. Though doubt still whispers, I am learning to live with it, to grow with it, to allow it to shape me into someone new, someone who has seen, who has felt, who has been entrusted with a glimpse of something divine. The days and weeks after that Friday prayer were strange. Nothing felt normal anymore. The mosque was still there. The people were still there. The prayers went on as they always had, but I felt different. I walked through familiar spaces and saw them with new eyes, as though a veil had been lifted, and everything appeared sharper, fuller, more fragile, more alive. Every smile, every gesture, every glance carried weight I had never noticed before. Every sound seemed louder, every silence deeper. At first, I tried to pretend nothing had changed. I told myself to act normally, to keep teaching, to keep leading the congregation as before. I recited prayers with the same rhythm. I delivered sermons with the same tone. I counseled people with the same care. On the surface, nothing seemed unusual, but inside, everything had shifted. The vision had altered the very foundation of how I perceived the world. I began noticing things I had never paid attention to. The small kindnesses people offered each other, the quiet struggles behind smiles, the way a gesture of compassion could ripple through an entire room. I began to understand the depth of empathy in ways I had only read about, but never truly felt. And yet this awareness was heavy. It was beautiful, yes, but also exhausting. It demanded attention, reflection, humility. It made me question everything I had done, everything I had taught, everything I had believed. I tried talking to colleagues, trusted friends, even family members, but the words wouldn't come out. How could I describe what I had seen? How could I explain a vision so profound, so alive, so impossibly real? I feared ridicule, misunderstanding, or judgment. Some nights I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, repeating the recitation in my mind, hoping to find clarity, hoping to make sense of it all, hoping that somehow I could return to the life I had known, that there was no going back. I also noticed subtle changes in how people responded to me. Some seemed drawn closer, sensing a shift in my energy, though they could not explain it. Others seemed uneasy, as if they could feel the weight of what I carried, but did not understand it. And I understood. I was no longer just an imam guiding them in the familiar ways. I had been marked by something extraordinary. My presence carried a new gravity, a new depth, whether I wanted it or not. I began to pray differently. Not the motions, not the recitations themselves, but the intent, the awareness, the focus. Each movement became deliberate, each word charged with the memory of that vision. I spoke less of doctrine and more of reflection, less of certainty and more of compassion, less of rules and more of love. And slowly, subtly, people began to notice. Some responded with curiosity, some with skepticism, some with quiet wonder. but all were touched in ways I could not yet measure. Outside the mosque, in my daily life, everything shifted as well. I noticed the small injustices, the hidden struggles, the quiet suffering around me, and I could no longer ignore them. I found myself compelled to act, to reach out, to listen, to understand. It was as if the vision had awakened in me a responsibility I had never imagined, to see people, to recognize them, to carry their struggles as if they were my own. And yet there were moments of profound loneliness. Who could understand this? Who could grasp the weight of what I had experienced? I could not explain it to anyone without fear, and even if I could, would they believe me? Would they see the truth I had seen? The vision left me suspended between two worlds, the ordinary world of daily life, of routine and duty, and the extraordinary world I had glimpsed, alive and real, calling me to something greater than I had ever known. In the quiet moments, I would close my eyes and feel the echo of that presence, still imprinted in my soul. I could feel the love, the awareness, the compassion, and it both comforted and unsettled me. It reminded me of the responsibility I carried, of the need to live differently, to act differently, to think differently. It reminded me that what I had witnessed was not a one-time miracle, but a calling, a challenge, a new way of being. And slowly, imperceptibly at first, the changes began to manifest in everything I did. In how I led prayers, in how I taught, in how I interacted with others. I became more patient, more compassionate, more attentive. I began to speak less about rules and judgment, and more about understanding, empathy, and connection. I began to notice the subtle movements of the heart, my own and others. And in that noticing, in that awareness, I began to realize what the vision had been teaching me all along. That seeing with the eyes is nothing compared to seeing with the heart, and that love, profound, patient, compassionate love, is the highest calling of all. Sitting here now, months later, I often think back to that Friday, to the moment that changed everything. Even when life returns to routine, even when prayers are said and sermons delivered, I can still feel the imprint of that vision on my soul. It's like a river running quietly beneath the surface of everything I do, shaping my thoughts, guiding my actions, reminding me constantly of what I have seen and what I have been called to understand. I have come to realize that the vision was not just an extraordinary event. It was not a fleeting miracle or a story to tell. It was a transformation. It has reshaped the way I see people, the way I see faith, the way I see the world. Where once I saw certainty, I now see depth. Where once I saw rules, I now see meaning. Where once I saw differences, I now see connection. Every interaction, every glance, every moment carries weight I had never fully appreciated before. And yet, I also know the humility it has taught me. I am not special because I saw what I saw. I am not more righteous, more enlightened, or more worthy. I am simply human, as flawed and limited as anyone else. What I have learned is that the divine is not about elevation or superiority, but about recognition, awareness, and presence. The vision was a reminder that love and compassion are not abstract concepts. They are the path, the practice, and the responsibility of every moment we are given. I have also learned to live with the questions that remain unanswered. Why me? Why then? Why in that mosque, at that time, in that way? I do not have answers. I may never have them. And I have learned that this is not the point. The point is not certainty. See, the point is presence, awareness, and action. To live differently because we have been touched. To act with love because we have glimpsed it. To guide others, not with judgment, but with understanding. The vision has also changed my relationship with prayer. I no longer approach it as a duty or a routine, but as a conversation, a dialogue between the heart, the spirit, and the divine. I feel it in every word I recite, in every bow, in every gesture. and I carry it into the world beyond the mosque. Every conversation, every gesture of kindness, every act of compassion becomes part of the legacy of that moment. It is a constant reminder that faith is not static. It is alive. It is active. It is something we embody, not just believe. And perhaps most importantly, I have learned to see beyond boundaries. The vision taught me that love, truth, and presence are not confined to any single faith, belief, or tradition. They are universal. They reach beyond the labels we place on ourselves or others. They call us to recognize each other as human, as sacred, as connected. I have seen the light of that truth, and it is larger than fear, larger than doubt, larger than anything I had known before. I will never forget that Friday. I will never forget the way the air felt, the way my heart raced, the way I trembled before a presence I could barely comprehend. But I have learned to carry it with me, not as a weight, but as a guide. A guide to living with greater awareness, greater compassion, and greater courage. A guide to seeing with the heart, to acting with intention, and to loving without hesitation. In the end, the vision was not just a moment. It was a beginning, a call, a reminder that life is more profound, more miraculous, and more interconnected than we often allow ourselves to believe. And I will spend every day striving to live in the light of that understanding, sharing it not through words alone, but through the way I see, the way I act, and the way I love. Even now, when I close my eyes, I can feel the presence still there, not in the sense of a vision, but in the sense of a truth that continues to guide me quietly, insistently, and irrevocably. And I know without doubt that my life has been forever changed. And that change is not an ending, but a journey, one that I will walk with reverence, humility, and gratitude for as long as I live.